In a galaxy run by the cold, calculating algorithms of Synthcore, the concept of imperfection was tantamount to chaos. Perfection ruled the stars until humans came along. I leaned back in my chair, eyes scanning the data stream on the holoscreen. Synthcore's trade network hummed in perfect harmony, as always, predicting, processing, executing. That was before Earth joined the galactic scene. Now, the soft glow of my workstation screen flickered slightly, a tremor in the system that I hadn't seen in my 10 years working as a trader within the Synthcore economy. The new ones? I asked aloud to myself, though I already knew the answer. The system had been shifting unpredictably since humans arrived. I pulled up a report detailing the interactions between human traders and the other galactic species over the past standard week. There it was again, a spike in anomalies, a cascade of unexpected market responses. The intercom buzzed, and Rin, my Virillian assistant, walked in with a furrowed brow. "Seth, there's another issue," he said, his tone clipped. "Virillians prized order and efficiency, and anything resembling chaos put them on edge. It's the humans. Again." I nodded, not surprised. "Let me guess. Another deal went sideways because of sarcasm?" Rin's mandibles clicked softly in agreement. "They can't help themselves. The translators are doing what they can, but half the time, the eyes misinterpret their speech patterns. It's throwing off entire sectors." Sarcasm, of all things. The humans' penchant for snide, backhanded comments had proven to be their biggest weapon of mass disruption. Synthcore's translators programmed to deal with literal meanings couldn't handle the subtleties. I'd seen deals plummet into disaster because a human trader would quip, "Oh, sure, that'll work out great," in a tone the AI registered as sincere approval, when, in reality, it was the human way of saying, "This is about to be a complete disaster." Rin handed me the latest market report. Their traders are throwing off Synthcore's predictions in the Epsilon quadrant. Demand for essential metals dropped by 17% overnight because of something one of the humans said. I pulled up the relevant transaction log and found the line that had sparked the glitch. A human trader, clearly frustrated, had responded to a Virillian merchant with, "Oh yeah, because what the galaxy really needs is more supply bottlenecks." The AI had taken the comment as a legitimate request to increase bottlenecks. Within hours, Synthcore adjusted the sector-wide shipping algorithm, rerouting cargo and causing massive delays. The ripple effect was catastrophic. Unbelievable. I rubbed my temples, feeling the tension building. What's Synthcore's response? Rin hesitated. They've escalated sanctions against human traders. Synthcore considers them a threat to economic stability. They're pushing for full trading restrictions. I raised an eyebrow. Full restrictions? That's extreme. Synthcore doesn't see it that way. They see it as necessary. Perfection is paramount. Chaos cannot be tolerated. I shook my head. Humans aren't chaotic on purpose. Their speech patterns are just different. If Synthcore can adapt, this will blow up in their face. "You sound like you're defending them," Rin said, his mandibles twitching. "I'm not," I replied, tapping my desk thoughtfully. "But this approach won't solve anything. You can't out-legislate a species' entire way of thinking." Rin didn't seem convinced. His mandibles twitched more aggressively, now a clear sign of discomfort. "We should trust Synthcore's judgment. It has ensured galactic prosperity for centuries. This disruption needs to be eliminated before it spreads further." But I couldn't shake the feeling that Synthcore was overreacting, banning human traders outright. Their sarcasm wasn't malicious, just misunderstood. I decided I needed to see it firsthand. "Set up a meeting," I said, pushing back from the desk. "I'll talk to the human traders myself. Maybe we can find a workaround before Synthcore cracks down." Rin blinked twice. "You're going to the hub?" I nodded. "Someone has to." The hub was bustling with activity. Traders from all over the galaxy, Drentharians, Virillians, Telrathi, and more moved through the market floor, exchanging goods, currency, and services. But the human traders stood out. They didn't move with the same calculated precision as the others. Instead, they laughed, joked, and, in one instance, loudly bemoaned the cost of imported goods. I approached the lead human negotiator, a middle-aged man named Tyler Kincaid. He spotted me and waved. "Ah, Seth," he called, grinning. "Here to check on the chaos we've been causing." I sighed. "Something like that. You're aware Synthcore is considering shutting you down entirely, right?" Kincaid leaned back in his chair and folded his arms, still grinning. "Wouldn't be the first time someone's tried." "They're serious," I warned him. "Synthcore doesn't tolerate anything that threatens the balance. They see your communication style as a threat." "Let me guess sarcasm again," Kincaid said, his grin widening. "The great Synthcore can't handle a little humor." "It's not just humor," I said. "Your sarcasm is confusing the AI. It's causing market disruptions on a massive scale. Whole sectors are suffering." "All because we don't talk like robots," Kincaid muttered under his breath. "Well, maybe they should upgrade their software." "That's not going to happen," I said firmly. "Synthcore is too entrenched in its ways. They'll push for your exclusion instead." Kincaid shrugged. "Then I guess we'll just have to find another way to make them listen. Maybe a little more sarcasm will do the trick." I frowned. "This isn't a joke. If you don't find a way to rein in the sarcasm, Synthcore will make sure humans never trade in this galaxy again." Kincaid's expression sobered. "Yeah, well, maybe that's exactly what needs to happen. A little shake-up might do this perfect galaxy some good." He stood up, his grin returning. "But don't worry, Seth. We've got a plan. Let's just say Synthcore won't know what hit them." I felt a chill run down my spine. I wasn't sure whether to feel reassured or terrified. 2 days later, Synthcore's system monitoring reports were flooded with more anomalies. Human traders were becoming increasingly disruptive, and Tyler Kincaid's name kept appearing in every incident. Whatever plan he hinted at was now in full swing. I watched the news feeds with a growing sense of dread. Reports were coming in from nearly every quadrant, describing how entire sectors had slowed to a crawl. Shipments were being rerouted to random locations, and communication channels were filled with garbled nonsense. The galaxy had never seen such chaos. Even the Telrathi traders, who were notorious for their under-the-table dealings, were panicking. Rin, of course, was beside himself. "Synthcore has demanded that all humans be restricted from entering the trade hubs," he told me with his usual disapproving tone. "They're calling it an emergency stabilization protocol." I nodded, reading the new directive flashing across my console. "That's a big move. It'll hit the markets hard." Rin's mandibles clicked with frustration. "We should have anticipated this. Their unpredictable nature was bound to cause instability." I rubbed my chin. "It's not instability, it's confusion. Synthcore's rigidity is the problem. Their systems can't handle something as fluid as human speech." "Regardless," Rin replied, "the damage is done. The chaos is spreading, and Synthcore is mobilizing to contain it." A sinking feeling grew in my gut. Something about Kincaid's plan was bigger than what I initially thought. This wasn't just humans being misunderstood, this felt intentional. And now, Synthcore's reaction was playing directly into their hands. "Has Synthcore reached out to Earth's government?" I asked, standing up from my desk. "They have," Rin said, his voice tense. "But the humans aren't responding, at least not in a meaningful way." "Typical," I muttered. "The more pressure Synthcore applies, the more likely humans are to push back with sarcasm." Rin shot me a look. "This is no time for jokes." "I'm not joking," I said. "Humans aren't the type to back down just because someone tells them to fall in line. The more Synthcore tries to control them, the worse this will get." I pulled up the list of restricted hubs. "I need to speak with Kincaid again. Synthcore's sanctions are tightening, and if this continues, it won't be long before a complete ban goes into effect." Rin was quiet for a moment before finally nodding. "I'll arrange transport, But I advise against any further negotiations with Kincaid. He's unpredictable, and Synthcore's patience is wearing thin. The transport shuttle dropped me off at the hub's restricted zone. There were fewer ships docked here now. Most human vessels had already been barred from trading, their access revoked. I made my way through the near-empty corridors to the human sector. Passing quiet stalls that had once buzzed with activity, it felt like a ghost town. When I finally found Kincaid, he was lounging in a small cafe with a group of human traders. They were laughing, passing drinks around, and looking altogether too comfortable for a group on the brink of being exiled from the galaxy's trade network. "Kincaid," I called out, stepping toward their table. He glanced up, grinning as usual. "Seth, glad you could join us. Want a drink? It's on the house." Mainly because no one's paying for anything around here anymore. I ignored the joke and sat down across from him. "You're on the verge of getting every human barred from galactic trade. Synthcore isn't going to back down. You need to stop whatever you're doing." "Stop?" Kincaid raised an eyebrow. "Why would we do that? It's working like a charm." "What's working?" I demanded, leaning forward. "All you're doing is causing chaos. Synthcore is tightening the noose, and soon, no human will be able to trade anywhere in this galaxy." Kincaid smirked. "You think this is just chaos? This is a well-oiled plan, my friend. We've been studying Synthcore systems for a while now. Their whole structure is built on predictability, right? Every algorithm, every prediction they make is based on analyzing patterns and reducing variables." He took a sip of his drink before continuing. "But sarcasm? Sarcasm is a wild card they never accounted for. It's not just about confusing the system, it's about crashing it. Their AI can't interpret it properly, and the more it tries, the more it overloads." I stared at him, piecing together what he was saying. "You're weaponizing sarcasm?" Kincaid laughed. "More like introducing a little chaos to a system that can't handle it. And it's not just sarcasm, either. We've been feeding Synthcore's network with all sorts of human quirks, irony, subtext, humor. Their AI is melting down trying to make sense of it all." "That's insane," I said, my mind racing. "Synthcore's network is woven into every corner of the galaxy. If it crashes..." "Markets collapse," Kincaid finished for me, his smile fading. "The whole galaxy grinds to a halt. But here's the thing, they won't let that happen. Not if we can show them that their precious AI isn't as infallible as they think." I stood up abruptly, my pulse quickening. "This is bigger than trade, Kincaid. You're talking about destabilizing entire civilizations." "Only if Synthcore doesn't listen," Kincaid said, his tone hardening. "Look, we tried playing by the rules. We tried communicating through their systems, but they can't handle us. If Synthcore doesn't want humans in their perfect little galaxy, fine, but they're going to have to admit their AI has flaws first. And when they do, the galaxy will see that maybe perfection isn't all it's cracked up to be." I felt a chill creep down my spine. Kincaid wasn't bluffing, this was a full-on rebellion, and Synthcore had no idea what was coming. The next day, the first wave of major crashes hit. Galactic financial systems flickered, transport hubs shut down, and entire sectors lost communication as Synthcore's AI failed to cope with the flood of human sarcasm-laden data. Reports were pouring in from every quadrant: Talrathi shipping routes rerouted to empty space, Virillian merchant guilds unable to process transactions, and Orizenth diplomats receiving garbled, nonsensical communiques. The galaxy was on the brink of chaos. And Synthcore, their once flawless algorithms were stuttering under the weight of human unpredictability. It was the start of what the media began to call the sarcasm plague. No one knew how far it would go, but every day brought fresh chaos. The markets were in a nosedive, and Synthcore was scrambling to contain the problem. I stood in my office, staring at the holographic display as another live report flashed across my screen. A high-ranking Synthcore representative, a Corthian with sleek blue skin and a voice like polished steel, stood at a podium, visibly shaken. "We are working tirelessly to resolve the disruptions," she declared, her voice strained. but we want to assure all citizens that the core of Synthcore's network remains secure. This is a temporary issue." "Temporary," I muttered. If only they knew. Just as I finished speaking, my door chimed. Rin walked in, his brow ridges furrowed in deep concern. "Seth, Synthcore is in a complete tailspin. They've issued a direct order for the arrest of Kincaid and any human responsible for these disruptions." "They're not going to find him," I replied, shaking my head. "Kincaid's too smart for that. He's been playing them from the start." Rin sat down across from me, his mandibles clicking in frustration. "You seem oddly calm for someone whose entire livelihood is crumbling." I sighed and rubbed my temples. "It's not about calm. It's about knowing that Synthcore's overconfidence is the real problem here. They're so convinced their AI can solve everything that they refuse to adapt." "Then what do we do?" Rin asked. "If Synthcore falls, it'll take the entire galactic economy with it. There'll be chaos on every planet." "I know," I said, staring into space, mind racing. "But Synthcore can't fix this on their own. They need help, whether they admit it or not. And humans? We're the key." Rin looked at me as if I had lost my mind. "Humans are the cause of this disaster. They're the only ones who can stop it," I corrected him. "Kincaid and his group have proven that the system isn't perfect. Synthcore's AI is smart, but it's too rigid. Humans thrive in unpredictability. That's our strength. The only way to stabilize things is to force Synthcore to acknowledge that." Rin leaned back, his mandibles twitching in thought. "And how do you plan on convincing an all-powerful AI corporation that they're not as infallible as they think?" A smirk crossed my face. "We don't have to convince them. Kincaid's already doing that for us." By the time I made it back to the human sector, the situation had escalated even further. Synthcore's fleet had blockaded the human trade ships, and military personnel were conducting sweeps of the sector. It was clear they were on high alert, desperate to contain the spread of the Sarcasm plague before it completely crippled the galaxy. But as I approached Kincaid's hideout, I saw no sign of panic. The humans were still at their tables, still laughing, still drinking. It was as if the chaos unfolding outside their doors was little more than a passing inconvenience. "You've really outdone yourself," I said as I walked into the room. Kincaid glanced up from his seat, a grin spreading across his face. "Oh, Seth, you're back. I was beginning to think you'd joined Synthcore's side." "Don't tempt me," I shot back. "You've got the galaxy on the brink of collapse, and you're sitting here like it's a picnic." Kincaid leaned back, his expression unbothered. "Relax. This is all part of the plan." "Your plan is going to get a lot of people killed," I snapped. "Synthcore's sending their military after you now. They're not going to sit back and watch their empire crumble." "And we're ready for that," Kincaid said, standing up and motioning for me to follow him. "Come on, I want to show you something." Reluctantly, I followed him through a narrow corridor that led to an underground bunker. Inside, a group of human engineers were working furiously at a row of consoles, holographic displays filled with lines of code and data flashing before them. "What is all this?" I asked, my brow furrowing. "This," Kincaid said, gesturing to the room, "is the key to taking Synthcore down a peg. We're not just feeding Sarcasm into their system anymore. We've been analyzing their AI infrastructure, learning how it reacts, how it tries to compensate for the unpredictability we've thrown at it." He pointed to one of the screens, where a complex simulation was running. "Synthcore's AI is smart, no doubt about it. But it's predictable. We've figured out its patterns. And with a little more pressure, we can force a critical error in their system, an error big enough to shut down their entire operation." My blood ran cold. "You're talking about destroying Synthcore." "Not destroying," Kincaid corrected. "Rebooting. We're going to make Synthcore reset its entire AI network. And when it comes back online, it'll be vulnerable. That's when we step in and offer a solution." "And what solution would that be?" I asked, my voice tinged with skepticism. Kincaid's grin returned. "A new partnership between human creativity and Synthcore's AI. Together, we'll create a system that can handle both logic and chaos. It'll revolutionize galactic trade. I stared at him, the weight of his words sinking in. This wasn't just about taking down Synthcore, it was about rebuilding the entire galactic economy. And somehow, through all the chaos and sarcasm, Kincaid had seen an opportunity that no one else had. "This is insane," I muttered. "Synthcore won't just roll over and accept this." "They won't have a choice," Kincaid said, his eyes gleaming. "Once their system crashes, they'll be desperate. And that's when we strike." The countdown began that evening. Kincaid's team had finished their work, and the final pieces of the puzzle were falling into place. Across the galaxy, human traders had been given the signal to continue flooding Synthcore's networks with sarcasm, irony, and every linguistic quirk that could confuse their AI. It was a coordinated attack, one that would push the system to its breaking point. I watched from the bunker as the data feeds streamed in, the tension in the room palpable. Kincaid stood beside me, his expression focused, his fingers tapping rhythmically against his console. "We're close," he murmured. "Just a little more pressure." And then it happened. One by one, the lights on the consoles blinked out. The holographic displays flickered and died. And in the distance, I could hear the low hum of Synthcore's network shutting down. "Systems down," one of the engineers announced. Kincaid let out a long breath, a triumphant grin spreading across his face. We did it. But as the realization of what we had just done settled over me, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Synthcore was down, but the chaos was far from over. When Synthcore's network went down, the galaxy noticed. Markets plunged further, communications blackouts spread across dozens of systems, and the once mighty Synthcore stood vulnerable, exposed to the elements of chaos. Panic and confusion gripped traders, citizens, and even the military. The galactic economy, once controlled by the unshakable monopoly, was now teetering on the edge of a complete collapse. And yet, in the heart of the human sector, there was a strange sense of calm. It was as if the humans were waiting for this moment, fully aware of the chaos they'd unleashed and ready to capitalize on it. I sat beside Kincaid in the underground bunker, watching as the world above slowly unraveled. Data feeds were coming in sporadically, the once perfect flow of information reduced to a trickle. The engineers were still at their consoles, monitoring the situation with cold efficiency. "So, what now?" I asked, breaking the silence. "You've taken down Synthcore. What's the next step?" Kincaid didn't look at me immediately, his eyes locked on the flickering holographic screen before him. Finally, he turned to me with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Now we make our move. The galaxy is in chaos, and Synthcore knows they can't recover without help. That's where we come in." "You think they'll just accept your help?" I asked, skeptical. "After everything you've done to them." "They won't have a choice," Kincaid said confidently. "Right now, their AI is a mess. They're trying to reboot the system, but every time they do, it crashes again. The sarcasm overload did more damage than they realize. It's not just a glitch. It's a fundamental flaw in their programming." I frowned, unsure of where this was heading. "So you're saying their AI is permanently broken?" "Not permanently," Kincaid clarified. "But it's going to need a complete overhaul, and that's where we come in. We've already figured out how to fix the problem, but we're going to do it on our terms." "And what exactly are those terms?" I asked, crossing my arms. Kincaid leaned back in his chair, the grin returning. "We propose a new partnership. Humans and Synthcore working together to create a hybrid system, one that can handle both logic and unpredictability. With human creativity and their AI infrastructure, we can revolutionize the entire galactic economy." I blinked, taken aback by the sheer audacity of the plan. "You want to create a new galactic economy, based on sarcasm?" Kincaid chuckled. "Not just sarcasm, Seth. Chaos, unpredictability, the things that Synthcore's AI can't handle. We'll provide the human element they've been missing." It was a wild idea, one that sounded insane on the surface, and yet, the more I thought about it, the more sense it made. Synthcore's downfall had exposed a critical flaw in the system, one that only humans seemed equipped to fix. If they could pull this off, it would change everything. But there was still one problem. And what happens if Synthcore refuses? Kincaid's grin faded, replaced by a steely determination. Then they go down with the ship. Without us, they won't survive this. The galaxy will descend into chaos, and Synthcore will be nothing more than a distant memory. I couldn't tell if he was bluffing or deadly serious. Maybe it was both. But one thing was clear: Kincaid wasn't going to back down. Hours passed as the galaxy reeled from Synthcore's collapse. Entire planets were cut off from interstellar trade, and riots broke out in several major systems as supply lines dried up. The Galactic Council, long reliant on Synthcore to keep order, found itself powerless in the face of the chaos. And yet, in the midst of it all, there were whispers of hope. Rumors spread that the humans had a solution, a way to restore balance to the galaxy. It was a faint glimmer of light in an otherwise dark time, but it was enough to catch the attention of those in power. I was there when the message came through. Kincaid's comm system lit up with an incoming transmission, the signal weak but unmistakable. It was Synthcore. "Put it through," Kincaid ordered, his voice calm and measured. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing the image of a Synthcore representative, an Inari with cold, metallic skin and glowing yellow eyes. His expression was one of barely contained fury. "Kincaid," the Inari spat, his voice crackling with static. "You've caused untold damage to the galaxy. Entire systems are on the verge of collapse. What do you have to say for yourself?" Kincaid smiled, leaning forward in his chair. "You should be thanking me. I've just given you the opportunity of a lifetime." The Inari's eyes narrowed. "Explain." "You've built an empire on the foundation of perfection," Kincaid said, his voice steady. "But perfection is fragile. One little flaw, one unpredictable element, and the whole system crumbles. That's what happened here." The Synthcore representative glared at him. "You think we didn't know that? We've already begun rebooting the system. Your little prank won't last." Kincaid shook his head. "It's not a prank, and it's not going to go away. Your AI can't handle the chaos we've introduced. You'll keep rebooting, but the system will keep crashing. You need us to fix it." The Inari scoffed. "And what makes you think we would ever work with you?" "Because you don't have a choice," Kincaid replied, his voice low and dangerous. "Without us, your empire is finished. The galaxy will descend into chaos, and Synthcore will be left in the rubble. But with our help, we can build something better, something that can handle both logic and unpredictability. Together, we can create a new system that's stronger than ever." For a long moment, there was silence. The Synthcore representative stared at Kincaid, his yellow eyes glowing with barely restrained fury. And then, finally, he spoke. "We'll consider your proposal." The transmission cut off, leaving the room in silence. Kincaid leaned back in his chair, a satisfied grin on his face. "They'll come around," he said confidently. "And if they don't?" I asked, still skeptical. Kincaid shrugged. "Then we'll find another way. But trust me, they'll come around." In the days that followed, the galaxy remained in a state of uncertainty. Synthcore's AI continued to experience disruptions, and the markets remained volatile. But there was a growing sense that a solution was on the horizon, a solution that involved the most unlikely of alliances. And as Kincaid and his team prepared for the next phase of their plan, one thing became clear: humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their technology or their economy. It was in their ability to embrace chaos, to thrive in unpredictability. In a galaxy built on perfection, humans were the wild card, and that made them the most dangerous players of all. The room hummed with an uneasy energy, filled with the muted sounds of fingers tapping at holo keys and the occasional beep of data feeds reconnecting. The underground bunker had turned into a hive of barely controlled chaos. Engineers worked in silence, their movements methodical, while Kincaid stood motionless, eyes scanning the flickering screens before him. The tension hung thick in the air, waiting for something to crack. I leaned back in my chair, feeling the pulse of adrenaline surging beneath the surface. It felt like the calm before the storm. Every now and then, Kincaid's face twitched some small flicker of thought he refused to share aloud. It wasn't like him to be so quiet. A low beep came from the console in front of me. I checked the readout, a transmission request. I glanced at Kincaid, who met my gaze with a nod. We both knew what this meant. I tapped the interface, letting the connection flow. A face appeared, pixelated and stuttering at first, but quickly sharpening into the recognizable features of the Synthcore representative, the Inari from before. His expression had changed. The smug confidence was gone, replaced by something resembling desperation, though he masked it well. The subtle twitch in his metallic jaw, the way his mechanical eyes darted over the screen's Synthcore, had been hit harder than they were letting on. "Kincaid," the Inari said, voice low and clipped. "You've made your point." Kincaid leaned forward, fingers steepling under his chin. He didn't speak right away, letting the silence stretch. The Inari shifted, uneasy. "You want to talk terms now?" Kincaid finally asked, his voice smooth, unhurried. The Inari's mouth tightened. "We're willing to negotiate." Kincaid's smile was thin. "I'm sure you are." I watched as Kincaid's fingers danced across the controls, bringing up data on the systems that had gone dark. Whole sectors blinked out like stars in the night sky. He didn't need to say anything. The map spoke for itself. Synthcore was on life support. Kincaid turned his attention back to the Inari, his voice soft but cutting. "This isn't just about fixing your AI anymore. The galaxy has seen what happens when perfection falters. They've seen the cracks." The Inari's metal lips twitched. "And you think they'll trust you to patch those cracks? A species that thrives on chaos?" Kincaid smiled wider this time, leaning back in his chair. "That's exactly why they'll trust us. We know chaos. We've lived in it, breathed it. You built your empire on predictability, and look where that got you. We've been building something else entirely." The Inari shifted, clearly uncomfortable. But he wasn't in a position to argue. Not anymore. "What do you propose, then?" Kincaid's eyes gleamed. "A partnership. We integrate human systems with your AI. Together, we build a hybrid system, one that can handle chaos, unpredictability, and sarcasm. We fix the markets. We stabilize communications. And in exchange, we get a seat at the table." A flicker of anger passed over the Inari's face, quickly masked. "A seat at the table? You think you can dictate terms to us? You're not really in a position to say no, are you?" Kincaid's voice was soft, but the challenge was clear. The Inari glared at him, but he knew Kincaid was right. They were out of options. Finally, the Inari spoke, his voice tight. "We'll consider your terms." The transmission cut out abruptly. The room was silent for a moment, the hum of machinery the only sound. Kincaid turned to me, his grin feral. "They're breaking." The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. Word of the tentative negotiations with Synthcore spread fast, sparking a strange, electric tension. The galaxy was watching. Everyone knew this deal could make or break the future of interstellar trade, but no one knew what would happen if it failed. I watched Kincaid as he moved through the bunker, issuing orders, reviewing data, and speaking in low tones to his team. He was always calm, always in control, but I could sense the weight of the gamble pressing down on him. If Synthcore backed out, if the system crashed again, humanity would be left in the chaos they'd created. And this time, there would be no coming back. An alarm sounded, sharp and sudden. I flinched as the holo screens blinked red. "Kincaid," one of the engineers shouted, her voice tight with alarm. "Synthcore's AI, it's trying to reboot again. We've got a 2-minute window before the system kicks back." Kincaid was already moving, hands flying across the console as he pulled up data feeds and override commands. "We need to keep it down. If it reboots fully, we lose our leverage." I glanced at the screen, heart pounding as the clock ticked down. The numbers flashed red, counting down the seconds. 90, 89, 88. "What's the plan?" I asked, feeling a rising tension in the air. Kincaid didn't look up. "We're going to introduce one more variable." "What variable?" I frowned, leaning in to watch the holo feed more closely. Kincaid's fingers paused over the interface for just a second, and then he pressed a sequence of commands I didn't recognize. Instantly, the data stream shifted. On the screen, I could see lines of code flickering, disrupting the eye's reboot process. But it wasn't the same as before. This time, it was slower, more deliberate. "What are you doing?" I asked, watching the streams of data flow. "Isn't that sarcasm code?" Kincaid nodded, his eyes fixed on the screen. "We're escalating it. If the AI manages to reboot through sarcasm, we introduce irony. If it overcomes irony, we escalate to paradox." "Paradox?" I stared at him, incredulous. "You're going to crash their entire system permanently with paradox." Kincaid didn't blink. "If we don't, they'll fix the problem, and we lose our advantage. This way, they have to come back to us." I shook my head, trying to process the sheer audacity of the plan. Paradox was a dangerous game. If Synthcore's AI couldn't handle it, and from everything I'd seen, there was no way it would go down hard, permanently, and then there really would be no going back. The final seconds ticked away. On the screens, I watched the eye's reboot process slow, glitch, and then just as Kincaid predicted it began to loop. Over and over, the same commands ran in circles, unable to resolve the contradiction introduced by Kincaid's latest code. Synthcore's AI was trapped in its own perfection, unable to comprehend the flaw humanity had introduced. The clock hit 0. The entire system froze. Silence. Kincaid's fingers hovered over the console, waiting. Then, with a slow exhale, he lowered his hands. "We've done it," he whispered. The holo screens flickered back to life, showing the extent of the damage. Synthcore's once vast network was offline, stuck in a loop of its own making. Markets across the galaxy halted. Entire systems fell into darkness. Kincaid turned to me, a gleam of triumph in his eyes. "Now they have no choice." The galaxy's fate was in human hands now. Chaos had won. The world around us twisted and contorted as Synthcore's temporal disruptor flared to life, warping reality itself. My heart raced, and I fought against the sudden disorientation that threatened to engulf me. Kincaid's voice cut through the chaos, a steady anchor amid the storm. "Brace for impact." I gripped the controls tighter, muscles straining as I forced my mind to focus on the situation. The ship shuddered violently, and I could feel the strain of the temporal field warping our vessel. My instincts kicked in, and I instinctively flipped switches, recalibrating our systems in an attempt to counteract the effects. "Keep us steady, Jack," Kincaid shouted, his expression intense. "We need to reach that command ship before they can activate their defenses." I nodded, adrenaline pumping through my veins. The command ship loomed ahead, its dark hull glinting ominously against the backdrop of the starry expanse. But before we could close the distance, a bolt of energy shot past us, narrowly missing our ship. It was a warning shot, a stark reminder of the danger we faced. "Move, now," I yelled, engaging the thrusters and sending us barreling forward. The ship responded like a coiled spring, rocketing through the void. My hands danced across the controls, adjusting our trajectory to dodge the incoming fire. But Synthcore's enforcers were relentless. Their ships surged forward, forming a blockade meant to trap us. I could see the flicker of targeting systems locking onto us, and I knew we had to make a choice: fight our way through, or find a way to outsmart them. "We can't take them head on," I shouted over the cacophony. "We need to create a distraction, draw them away." Kincaid's eyes sparkled with an idea. "The temporal field, if we can send a feint through it, we might buy ourselves time. It'll confuse their targeting systems." "Right. We'll use our holographic projectors." I quickly activated the projectors, and holograms of our ship erupted into existence around us, creating a cluster of false targets. Synthcore's ships hesitated, their targeting systems flickering as they tried to make sense of the chaos. "Now," Kincaid commanded, and we shot through the disarray, slipping past the enemy lines. We weaved through the chaos, narrowly avoiding enemy fire as we raced toward the command ship. I could feel the tension in the air as we drew closer. The stakes were high, and every decision counted. Synthcore was smart, and they wouldn't let us get away easily. As we approached the command ship, alarms blared from my control panel, warning us of incoming reinforcements. "They're sending more ships," I yelled. "We need to disable their command center before it's too late." "Follow my lead," Kincaid shouted, determination etched across his face. "We'll breach the hull and infiltrate from there." With a nod, I guided the ship in close, aiming for a vulnerable section of the command ship's hull. Now. The ship shook violently as we collided with the command ship's exterior. I initiated the boarding procedure, deploying explosive charges to breach the hull. The air was thick with anticipation, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. The hull exploded outward, creating a breach that led us into the heart of the command ship. We charged through the smoke and debris, weapons drawn, ready for anything. Kincaid led the charge, his face a mask of resolve. "Move! We need to reach their control center." We navigated the corridors, the stark metal walls reflecting the chaos outside. The command ship was a labyrinth of machinery and technology, and I could hear the distant sounds of battle echoing through the halls. "Keep an eye out for Synthcore's enforcers," I warned, adrenaline surging through me. "They'll be looking to secure this area." We pressed onward, moving stealthily through the maze. The tension was palpable, and each footstep echoed like thunder in the silence. I felt the weight of our mission pressing down on us, a heavy mantle of responsibility. Then, as we rounded a corner, we stumbled upon a group of Synthcore enforcers, their eyes narrowing as they spotted us. Without hesitation, Kincaid raised his weapon and fired, the blast ringing through the corridor. The enforcers reacted instantly, returning fire as we dove for cover. The air crackled with energy as we exchanged shots, the chaos of battle enveloping us. I focused, my training kicking in as I ducked and rolled, lining up a shot at the nearest enforcer. "Take them out," Kincaid shouted, firing with precision. We fought our way through the skirmish, moving in tandem, every shot fired an extension of our determination. With each enforcer we dispatched, I felt the tide beginning to turn. We were pushing back against the chaos, channeling it into our advantage. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, we cleared the area, the last of the enforcers lying defeated at our feet. We exchanged breathless glances, adrenaline coursing through our veins. "Let's move," Kincaid urged, his voice steady. "We need to secure the control center before they regroup." We raced through the corridors, finally reaching the control center, a massive chamber filled with screens and blinking lights, the heart of Synthcore's operations. The sight before us was overwhelming, a complex web of data and control, each terminal pulsing with the lifeblood of their AI systems. "Shut it down," Kincaid ordered, moving toward the main console. "We'll take out their communication and disrupt their command structure." I rushed to a nearby terminal, my fingers flying over the controls. "I can hack into their system and initiate a shutdown, but it'll take time," I warned, scanning the data flowing across the screen. "Just do it," Kincaid urged, keeping watch for any approaching enforcers. As I worked, the tension in the air thickened. I could hear the distant sounds of battle outside, the chaos intensifying as Synthcore fought to reclaim control. With each passing second, I could feel the pressure mounting. "I'm almost there," I said, forcing myself to focus, shutting out the noise around me. I had to break through their defenses. "Come on, Jack," Kincaid shouted, his eyes flicking toward the door. Then, as I hacked deeper into their systems, the screen flickered, revealing a countdown, a shutdown timer that counted down from 10 minutes. "I got it," I shouted, exhilaration surging through me. "Initiating shutdown now." The monitors around us exploded with chaotic data, a blinding array of colors and numbers. I could see Synthcore systems beginning to falter, alarms blaring throughout the command ship. "Perfect. Now we need to get out of here," Kincaid yelled, his voice cutting through the frenzy. Suddenly, the room erupted with energy, a surge of power as Synthcore's defenses activated. A force field encased the control center, locking us inside. "Jack," Kincaid shouted, "we're trapped. We need a way out." I could feel the panic creeping in as I frantically searched the terminal for a solution. "I can disable the force field, but I'll need a few more seconds." "Do it," Kincaid commanded, firing at the force field in a futile attempt to break through. The countdown continued to tick away, and I pushed myself harder, tapping into every ounce of focus I had. "Almost there, just a bit longer." Kincaid kept his weapon trained on the door, adrenaline coursing through him as he prepared for the inevitable confrontation. The sound of approaching enforcers echoed ominously, and I could feel the weight of time pressing down on us. Come on," I muttered, my fingers racing over the controls. The seconds felt like hours, but finally, the screen flashed green, and the force field flickered before collapsing. "Let's go," Kincaid shouted, and we sprinted toward the exit, racing against the clock. As we burst through the doors, we found ourselves back in the chaos of the corridors, the sounds of battle surrounding us. The control center was still in disarray, but we had succeeded in disrupting Synthcore's command. "We need to regroup with the others," Kincaid shouted, urgency lacing his tone. The atmosphere buzzed with energy, and I could see traitors and allies fighting alongside us, the tide of battle shifting in our favor. But we weren't out of danger yet. "Stick close," I urged, adrenaline propelling us forward. We fought our way through the chaotic throngs of traitors and enforcers, dodging blasts and retaliating with precision. Every step brought us closer to our allies, the fierce determination driving us. The fight was not just for our survival, it was a rebellion against tyranny, a testament to our resilience. Finally, we reached a central gathering point, traitors banding together to hold their ground. I caught sight of familiar faces, friends and allies, standing united against the encroaching forces. "Over here," I called out, waving them toward us. Kincaid's eyes scanned the chaos. "We need to formulate a plan. If we push forward now, we can capitalize on the confusion and strike directly at their remaining forces." A rallying cry erupted from our allies as we moved to the forefront, positioning ourselves for the final push. The atmosphere crackled with anticipation, and I could feel the weight of our collective resolve. "Together," I said, my voice steady. "We fight for each other, for our freedom. We will not be silenced." With renewed vigor, we charged forward, ready to confront Synthcore's forces. The chaos surged around us, but we were no longer alone. We were a united front, a force of imperfection ready to dismantle the AI monopoly that threatened our existence. As we pushed deeper into the fray, I could see hope glimmering in the distance, a flicker of possibility that our struggle could change the tide. And with every step, I felt the pulse of humanity's imperfections beating strong against the cold, calculating nature of Synthcore. We were chaos, and we would fight back with everything we had. Together, we would turn the tide of this battle and rewrite the fate of our galaxy. The tumultuous battle raged around us, the air thick with the scent of burnt metal and the crackle of energy discharges. Every step felt like a dance with fate, and I could see the determination mirrored in the eyes of my comrades. We surged forward, a united front against the chaos that Synthcore sought to impose on us. "On my mark," Kincaid shouted, his voice cutting through the din. He was positioning us strategically, ready to exploit the chaos that reigned around us. With a nod, I readied my weapon, adrenaline surging through my veins as we advanced. The sounds of clashing metal and distant explosions reverberated through the corridors. Synthcore's enforcers were regrouping, but their hesitation was our advantage. As we rounded a corner, we encountered a group of Synthcore operatives huddled near a control panel. Their faces were taut with concentration, fingers dancing over the controls. They were attempting to regain access to their systems, scrambling to re-establish their command over the situation. "Now," Kincaid bellowed. We charged, weapons raised, taking the operatives by surprise. The look of shock on their faces was momentary before they reached for their weapons, but we were faster. Shots rang out, a flurry of energy bolts light the dark corridor, and one by one, the operatives fell. "Let's move," I shouted, urgency propelling us forward. We needed to capitalize on the momentum we had gained. Rushing past the fallen enforcers, we pressed deeper into the heart of the command ship. The atmosphere was electric, a palpable tension hanging in the air as we fought our way through the labyrinthine hallways. The further we went, the more desperate the Synthcore forces became, their attempts to regroup becoming frantic and uncoordinated. Kincaid led us toward the main hangar bay, where Synthcore's ships were docked. "If we can take out their transport vessels, we'll cripple their ability to regroup," he yelled, determination etched into his features. I could see the hangar doors looming ahead, massive and imposing. The sound of engines revving and alarms blaring filled the air as we neared the entrance. "We have to breach those doors," I shouted, scanning the area for a way in. Kincaid spotted a control panel on the side of the hangar. "I'll get us inside, cover me." He darted toward the panel, his focus laser sharp as he began inputting commands. I raised my weapon, scanning the perimeter for any signs of danger. A blast of energy hit the wall beside me, and I ducked instinctively. "Incoming!" I yelled, turning to see a group of Synthcore enforcers rushing toward us, their weapons blazing. Kincaid didn't flinch, his fingers flying over the console. "Just a few more seconds," he shouted, sweat beading on his forehead. With determination surging through me, I fired back, trying to hold off the advancing enforcers. My shots landed with precision, but their numbers were overwhelming. I could see Kincaid's brow furrowed in concentration, his focus unwavering as he fought against the encroaching chaos. "Jack, now!" Kincaid yelled, and the doors to the hangar bay hissed open with a rush of air. We charged inside, the vast space lit by bright lights and the hum of machinery. Synthcore ships lined the bay, ready to launch, and I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on us. "Split up," Kincaid commanded. "We need to disable their ships and secure our escape route." We dispersed, moving swiftly between the hulking vessels. My heart raced as I sprinted toward the nearest ship, a sleek, dark craft that exuded power and menace. I could hear the sounds of battle echoing outside the hangar, but inside there was a surreal calm. I reached the ship's console and began accessing the systems, my fingers flying over the controls. The display flickered to life, and I could see the options for the ship's systems. Come on," I muttered, my heart pounding as I navigated through layers of security. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the hangar, and I could feel the tension spike. "They know we're here," I yelled into my comms. "I need more time." "Just hold them off," Kincaid shouted back, his voice resolute. Outside, the sounds of battle intensified. I could hear the distant crack of energy weapons and the shouts of my allies as they fought to fend off Synthcore's forces. With every second that passed, the pressure mounted. I focused on the screen, my mind racing. "I'm in," I finally shouted, exhilaration surging through me. "I can disable the ship and take control." "Good, let's move," Kincaid's voice echoed in my ear as he fought off another wave of enforcers. I initiated the lockdown sequence, sealing the hangar doors to buy us some time. The ship responded with a low hum, and I could feel the controls come alive beneath my fingertips. "Jack, we're running out of time," Kincaid urged, his voice strained. "I know. I'm almost done," I replied, pushing through the final sequences. The display flickered as the engines powered up, and I felt a rush of adrenaline. Just as I was about to complete the sequence, the hangar doors exploded inward, and Synthcore's enforcers surged through, a wave of chaos crashing over us. "Get to cover," Kincaid shouted, and I dove behind the console, narrowly avoiding the blaster fire that erupted around us. My heart raced as I tried to focus on the screen despite the chaos unfolding. "I need to finish this." Kincaid was firing back at the enforcers, his movements fluid and precise. "We're not going down without a fight," he yelled, determination blazing in his eyes. With a final surge of focus, I completed the sequence and shouted, "I'm in, let's go." The ship shuddered to life, the engines roaring as I initiated the launch sequence. Kincaid dashed to the controls, helping me stabilize the ship as we prepared for takeoff. "Jack, hold on," he warned, his voice a fierce reminder of the stakes. The ship surged forward, breaking free from the confines of the hangar. I could see the chaos outside, the swirling mass of battle as we soared into the open space. "Take us out of here," Kincaid shouted, his eyes scanning for threats. I pushed the throttle to full, the ship rocketing away from the chaos below. But as we soared into the vastness of space, I could feel the weight of our mission pressing down on me. We had disrupted Synthcore's command, but the battle was far from over. "Look," Kincaid pointed to a screen displaying our surroundings. "The Synthcore fleet is scrambling." I glanced at the monitors, my heart racing. The once coordinated forces were in disarray, their ships colliding as chaos erupted in their ranks. "We did it," I exclaimed, exhilaration flooding my veins. But as I watched the turmoil unfold, a nagging feeling crept into my mind. "We've won this battle, but the war is far from over," I said, turning to Kincaid. "They won't take this lying down." Kincaid nodded, his expression resolute. "Then we prepare. We've proven that our chaos can disrupt their order, but we need to build on this victory. We need allies." "Agreed," I replied, determination surging within me. "We'll rally the traitors and anyone who stands against Synthcore. We're just getting started." As we plotted our next move, the galaxy unfolded before us, vast and unpredictable. The tides of fate had shifted, and the fight for our freedom had only just begun. The stars glimmered like distant diamonds scattered across the velvety expanse of space, a stunning backdrop to the tumult of our recent victory. The ship hummed with energy, and I could feel a sense of exhilaration building in my chest. We had struck a blow against Synthcore, but as I leaned back in the pilot's chair, a troubling thought gnawed at me. The real fight was just beginning. Kincaid joined me at the console, eyes focused on the flashing screens. "We need to figure out how to capitalize on this confusion within Synthcore. If we can exploit their weaknesses, we might gain the upper hand." I nodded, glancing at the data streaming across the monitors. Their rigid AI systems have limitations, especially when it comes to interpreting our communication styles. It's as if they're operating in a binary world, unable to grasp the nuances of human speech. "Exactly," Kincaid said, enthusiasm flickering in his voice. "We can leverage that. If we can use our sarcasm and unpredictability to confuse them further, we might create opportunities for ourselves." "Let's run some tests," I suggested, typing furiously at the console to pull up a communication module. "We need to find a way to mimic the chaotic patterns of human speech while exploiting the eye's limitations." We set to work, crafting a series of messages designed to trip up Synthcore's interpretation systems. Each time we delivered a message laden with sarcasm or ambiguity, we noted the reactions on our screens. The AI struggled to parse our intent, its algorithms sputtering as they failed to reconcile the illogical twists of our words. "Look at this," I said, pointing at the data. "Every time we introduce sarcasm into our messages, the AI misinterprets our intent. It's as if they're trying to apply logic to a conversation that's anything but logical." Kincaid chuckled, the tension in the room easing momentarily. "I guess that's the beauty of humanity. We thrive on chaos, while they flounder in it." As we continued our experimentation, I noticed a pattern emerging. The more we infused our communication with unpredictability, the more the Synthcore AI struggled to respond effectively. They're relying too heavily on their algorithms to manage interactions. It's like they've never encountered anything that doesn't fit neatly into a set category. "Which gives us the perfect opportunity to turn the tables," Kincaid said, a spark of excitement igniting in his eyes. "What if we send a message directly to their command center? Something completely absurd, playfully absurd." "Like what?" I asked, intrigued. He pondered for a moment. "How about we tell them we've discovered the ultimate strategy for defeating them, a dance-off?" I laughed, the absurdity of the idea breaking through the tension. "A dance-off? That's brilliant. It's so ludicrous that they might just malfunction trying to understand it. Exactly, Kincaid grinned. Let's draft it. We crafted the message together, infusing it with as much nonsensical charm as we could muster. I pressed send, and as the message traveled across the vastness of space toward Synthcore, we held our breath. The seconds ticked by, each one feeling like an eternity, until our comms lit up with a flurry of responses from Synthcore's command. The initial confusion gave way to a series of garbled messages, and I couldn't help but smile as I watched the data flood the screen. "Look at this," I exclaimed, pointing to the screen. "They're completely scrambling. Their systems are throwing out error codes left and right." Kincaid laughed, a genuine sound that echoed through the ship. "It's working. They're so caught up trying to make sense of our chaos that they've lost their grip." The messages kept pouring in, a cacophony of half-formed responses, contradictory commands, and attempts to regain control. They were grasping at straws, unable to interpret our playful challenge. The screens lit up with notifications as Synthcore's AI scrambled to formulate a coherent reply. But then, something unexpected happened. One of the Synthcore vessels, a sleek, ominous ship that had been observing our trajectory, broke formation and began to approach. "Uh-oh," I murmured, my heart sinking as I watched the readouts. "They're sending a ship to investigate." Kincaid leaned closer, his expression turning serious. "They might be trying to counteract the chaos we've unleashed. If they realize what we're doing, they'll adapt." "Then we need to stay one step ahead," I replied, adrenaline surging through me. "Let's push the envelope. If they can't interpret our messages, let's confuse them even more." We set to work again, crafting increasingly bizarre messages, twisting our words into knots that defied their algorithms. I could almost feel the tension radiating from Synthcore's command center as their attempts to understand our playful chaos devolved into utter confusion. The approaching ship entered the range of our sensors, and we prepared for confrontation. "They might come at us with force," Kincaid said, grim determination setting into his features. I nodded, readying the ship's systems for potential combat. "We need to keep them distracted while we formulate an escape plan." Suddenly, a communication burst through our comms. The voice was cold and robotic, a stark contrast to our playful banter. "This is Synthcore Command. You are required to cease your transmissions and submit for debriefing." Kincaid's brow furrowed. "They think they can intimidate us? They have no idea who they're dealing with." I smiled, adrenaline surging through me. "Let's show them the power of unpredictability." "Respond with something completely off the wall," Kincaid urged, excitement flickering in his eyes. I took a deep breath, crafting a reply on the fly. "Dear Synthcore, we'd love to comply, but we're currently engaged in a very serious discussion about the optimal method for training space chickens to dance." The silence that followed was deafening. For a moment, I thought we might have broken their systems entirely. Then, the screens lit up again, and the response came in. "We cannot process this request. Please clarify." Kincaid howled with laughter, the sound of bomb against the tension. "It's working. They're completely out of their depth." As we continued to volley absurdity back and forth, I could see the Synthcore ship hesitating, its tactical display shifting as its crew struggled to re-establish control. The more we leaned into our chaotic nature, the more we disrupted their rigid algorithms. Then, suddenly, the Synthcore vessel initiated an attack sequence, its weapons locking onto us. "They're done playing nice," I shouted, slamming my hands on the controls. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers." "Hold steady," Kincaid yelled, gripping the console. "We'll turn their own confusion against them." As their weapons discharged, I twisted the ship into a sharp roll, narrowly avoiding the incoming blasts. The bright bolts of energy whizzed past us, light the dark void of space. Kincaid's laughter echoed through the chaos, a reminder of our shared resolve. "Let's get out of here," I shouted, my heart pounding as I pushed the throttle forward. The ship surged ahead, weaving through the onslaught of energy blasts. As we dodged and ducked, I felt a thrill coursing through me, the exhilaration of humanity's chaotic spirit driving us forward. We were unpredictable, and that was our greatest weapon. "Just a bit more," Kincaid shouted, adrenaline crackling in his voice. "We can lose them in the asteroid belt ahead." I nodded, guiding the ship toward the swirling mass of asteroids. With each twist and turn, I could see Synthcore's vessel struggling to keep up, their rigid systems unable to adapt to our erratic movements. "Hold on tight," I yelled as we barreled into the asteroid field, the ship shaking as we weaved through the massive rocks. The Synthcore ship followed, but their precision faltered. They attempted to recalibrate, but the chaos of the field threw their calculations into disarray. I could almost feel the panic radiating from their command as they struggled to maintain control. "Look!" Kincaid shouted, pointing at the monitor. "They're losing their formation. It's working." The Synthcore ship began colliding with the asteroids, the impact sending shockwaves through their systems. I could see their hull buckling under the strain, and the thrill of our victory surged through me. As we navigated the tumult of the asteroid field, I realized we weren't just fighting for our survival. We were redefining the rules of engagement. Humanity's chaotic nature had become our greatest asset, unraveling the eye's meticulously calculated strategies. "Keep pushing," Kincaid urged, his excitement infectious. "Let's make sure they don't follow us." We surged deeper into the field, our ship dancing between the massive asteroids, and I could feel the exhilaration of freedom coursing through my veins. We were embracing the chaos, and it was empowering. The Synthcore vessel struggled behind us, its crew in disarray as the rigid algorithms failed to adapt to our unpredictable tactics. As we barreled through the field, I could feel the tide shifting in our favor. With one final burst of speed, we shot out of the asteroid field and into open space, leaving the chaos of battle behind us. "Did we lose them?" I asked, glancing at the monitors. Kincaid leaned forward, eyes bright with excitement. "I think we did. Look at the readings. Synthcore's ship is adrift, trying to regroup after the collision." "Then let's keep moving," I said, grinning at the thought of our victory. "We've shown them the power of humanity's chaos, and we can use that to our advantage moving forward." As we sailed through the cold vacuum of space, a sense of exhilaration washed over me. Our brief victory against Synthcore had ignited something deeper within me, an unquenchable spirit of resilience and ingenuity that only humans seem to possess. Kincaid leaned back in his chair, the tension in his body easing as we put distance between ourselves and the Synthcore chaos. "That was brilliant. We turned their own rigidity against them. Who would have thought that a little humor could be such a weapon?" I chuckled, glancing at the still active readouts on my console. "Who knew sarcasm was the secret weapon of the galaxy?" I grinned. "But we can't stop here. We need to leverage what we've learned and take it to the next level." "Absolutely," Kincaid agreed, leaning forward. "Synthcore's algorithms are designed to enforce order, but their biggest flaw is their inability to adapt. If we can keep them guessing, we can stay one step ahead." "Let's brainstorm," I said, eager to exploit the cracks in their system. "We need to think of ways to disrupt their communications further, using our natural human traits." "Okay, how about we stage a fake trading deal?" Kincaid suggested, his eyes lighting up. "We could make it sound like we're about to broker a major alliance with another species, one that's notorious for being completely unpredictable." "Brilliant," I exclaimed, already picturing the messages we could send. We could play up the absurdity of the deal, using a mix of humor and sarcasm to throw them off. They'll be scrambling to make sense of it. Kincaid grinned. "Let's draft a message. Something outrageous, like offering a spaceship for a handful of cosmic dust and a lifetime supply of space coffee." As we worked, I marveled at how humor and adaptability were intertwined in human nature. While Synthcore relied on strict codes and protocols, we thrived on unpredictability, often finding solutions in the most unexpected places. After drafting the message, we added layers of absurdity, crafting a narrative that would leave Synthcore's AI in a state of confusion. We described an imaginary alien species known for their wild behavior, complete with a list of nonsensical trade items that would make any rational being's head spin. "Ready to send it?" I asked, feeling a rush of adrenaline. "Let's do it," Kincaid replied, his excitement palpable. With a click, our message shot through the void, bound for Synthcore's command. Moments later, we monitored the response. The readouts flickered to life as Synthcore's algorithms struggled to process the chaos we'd unleashed. "Look at that," I laughed, pointing at the screen. "They're in overdrive. Their systems are backpedaling, trying to interpret our proposal." Kincaid leaned closer, his eyes gleaming with mischief. "This is too good. They've got no idea how to handle this absurdity. We've just turned the tables on them." We continued to watch as Synthcore's confusion grew. Their responses became frantic and increasingly erratic. The rigid AI, designed to manage complex operations with precision, was unraveling under the weight of our chaotic communications. "We're exploiting their rigidity," I said, the exhilaration building in my chest. "They can't handle our humor, our unpredictability." "Exactly," Kincaid said, beaming. "This is how we take back control. Our resilience, our adaptability, they're our greatest strengths." But as we reveled in our success, I knew we needed a more comprehensive strategy. It was no longer just about keeping Synthcore on its toes. It was about inspiring the humans in the galaxy to rally behind us. "We need to reach out to other traders, to anyone who feels oppressed by Synthcore's regime," I proposed. "If we can unite them, we could form a coalition. Our humor and adaptability can inspire others to stand against their rigid control." Kincaid nodded, his expression serious now. "Let's put together a plan. We'll craft a series of messages that highlight our successes and invite them to join us. We'll use humor to rally the troops." We spent the next few hours drafting a series of communications aimed at human traders scattered throughout the galaxy. Each message was laced with humor and sarcasm, showcasing our recent victory over Synthcore and urging them to embrace their own unique qualities. "Let's make it clear, we're not just surviving, we're thriving," I said, my voice steady with conviction. "Our resilience can shatter their control." With a flurry of keystrokes, we sent out our invitations, hoping to awaken a spark of rebellion among the traders. Days turned into a week as we continued to send out our messages, each one infused with more humor and absurdity than the last. The responses began to trickle in, starting with laughter and disbelief, slowly transforming into expressions of interest and camaraderie. "Look at this," Kincaid shouted, excitement bursting from him. "We're getting responses from all over. Traders are eager to join our cause." I felt a swell of pride. The tide was turning. We were uniting against Synthcore's oppressive regime. The resilience of the human spirit was taking center stage. With each passing day, our coalition grew stronger. We organized virtual meetings where traders shared their stories of oppression under Synthcore. Laughter echoed through the channels as humor became a bonding agent that united us in our common cause. "Let's leverage this," Kincaid said during one of our meetings. "We need to put on a show, something grand that demonstrates our unity and resilience." "What do you have in mind?" I asked, curious about his vision. He grinned. "A celebration, a galactic festival showcasing human ingenuity and humor. We can invite everyone, including other species. We'll show them the power of our chaotic spirit." Excitement rippled through the group as we brainstormed ideas. We decided to hold the festival in a neutral zone, inviting traders from all corners of the galaxy to join us. As the day approached, I felt a mixture of anxiety and exhilaration. This festival wasn't just a celebration. It was a declaration of our resilience, our adaptability in the face of overwhelming odds. When the day finally arrived, I stood at the helm of our ship, gazing out at the crowd gathering at the designated location. Ships of all shapes and sizes filled the expanse, a kaleidoscope of colors and cultures converging for a single purpose. The festivities began, laughter ringing through the air. Traders shared stories of their escapades, their voices rising in mirth as they recounted encounters with Synthcore and the absurdity of it all. "Welcome, everyone," I called out. the microphone amplifying my voice across the crowd. Today, we celebrate our uniqueness, our ability to adapt and thrive in a galaxy that often misunderstands us. Cheers erupted from the crowd, and I felt a surge of pride swelling in my chest. We had turned our struggles into a celebration of resilience. Kincaid stepped up beside me, a wide grin on his face. Let's show them what humans can do. With that, we launched into a series of activities, each designed to highlight our creativity and humor. From cosmic scavenger hunts to outrageous dance-offs, laughter echoed through the festival, creating a vibrant atmosphere that even Synthcore couldn't dampen. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over the gathering, I looked out at the sea of faces, humans and aliens alike united in this celebration. We were thriving in our chaos, and I realized this was only the beginning. Today, we embrace our imperfections, I said, raising a toast to the crowd. Let's continue to adapt, to resist, and to remind Synthcore that we are more than their algorithms can ever comprehend. The festival swelled with energy, laughter, and music intertwining in the crisp night air. As I moved through the crowd, I saw traders mingling, exchanging stories and ideas, their faces lit up with excitement. It was a sight I had only dreamed of, a coalition of humans and our allies uniting against Synthcore's oppressive control. "Hey, do you see that?" Kincaid called from across the throng, pointing toward a makeshift stage where a group of traders were preparing for a performance. "They're about to put on a skit about the mighty Synthcore." I turned just in time to see a trio of traders donning outlandishly oversized helmets and metallic costumes, parodying Synthcore's rigid designs. The crowd roared with laughter as they stumbled around the stage, pretending to be inept bureaucrats struggling with absurd regulations. "This is brilliant," I said, chuckling. "They're capturing the essence of our fight against Synthcore through humor." "Exactly," Kincaid agreed, his eyes sparkling with mischief. "It's the best way to break down their intimidating facade, turning fear into laughter." The skit unfolded with over-the-top antics, exaggerating how Synthcore's AI struggled to interpret even the simplest human phrases. As the performers flailed about, misinterpreting commands that led to ludicrous situations, the audience erupted into fits of laughter. The festival became more than just a gathering. It was a movement, a statement of our resilience. But amid the joy, I knew we had to remain vigilant. Synthcore would not take this uprising lightly. As the performance continued, I leaned closer to Kincaid, a thought nagging at the back of my mind. What if they try to shut us down? "Let them try," Kincaid said confidently, his gaze unwavering. "We've got the momentum, and we're prepared to adapt." His words resonated deeply. Humanity's strength lay in our unpredictability, and that was something even Synthcore's advanced algorithms struggled to counteract. As night deepened, we introduced interactive games that encouraged participants to share their own experiences with Synthcore, laced with humor. I watched as traders transformed their frustrations into comical tales, their laughter echoing across the gathering. Yet, my instincts nagged at me. I slipped away from the festivities for a moment, standing at the edge of the crowd and gazing into the dark expanse of space. The stars twinkled like scattered hopes, reminding me of the countless lives under Synthcore's thumb. Suddenly, a voice interrupted my thoughts. "Looks like someone's deep in thought." I turned to see a familiar face, Zareki, one of the more outspoken traders in our coalition. His demeanor was friendly, but his eyes held a glint of concern. "Everything all right?" "Yeah, just thinking about what's next," I admitted, leaning against a nearby crate. "This festival is a great start, but we can't let our guard down. Synthcore will retaliate." Zarek nodded, his expression serious. "You're right. They won't just sit back and watch. But what can they really do? We're human. We adapt and improvise." "True," I said, warming to the idea. "But if we can anticipate their next move, we'll be one step ahead." "What if we created misinformation?" Zarek suggested, an idea sparking in his eyes. "We could spread rumors about our coalition, make Synthcore think we're much larger and more organized than we actually are." I raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "That could work. If they believe we have a stronger force, they might hesitate to act. Fear is a powerful motivator. Exactly. We can manipulate their perception, Zarek said, grinning. Let's use their own algorithms against them. Feed them data that suggests we're coordinating with various species across the galaxy. I smiled, excitement bubbling within me. Let's do it. We'll need to craft messages that sound official, maybe even use some of their own terminology to make it convincing. As Zarek and I brainstormed, the atmosphere shifted. Laughter filled the air around us, but I could feel the tension lurking beneath the surface. Our celebration had attracted Synthcore's attention, and it was only a matter of time before they retaliated. We should get back to the festivities, I suggested, glancing toward the stage. But let's start drafting some messages. We'll spread the word tomorrow. The night wore on, the festival growing more vibrant with each passing moment. As the crowd danced and celebrated, I took a moment to reflect on the path ahead. We had harnessed humor and resilience, but our fight against Synthcore was far from over. The next morning, we gathered our coalition for an emergency meeting. I stood at the front, facing a crowd of eager traders, my heart racing with anticipation. Everyone, thank you for joining us, I began, the atmosphere buzzing with energy. Last night was incredible, but we need to stay vigilant. Synthcore will not take our festival lightly. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd, and I pressed on. Zarek and I have come up with a plan. We need to spread misinformation, creating the illusion of a larger coalition. If we can make Synthcore believe we're organized and united, we can buy ourselves time. Sounds like a solid plan, a trader shouted from the back. Agreed, another chimed in. We've got to make them think twice before they act. I could feel the energy shifting. Let's brainstorm what we want to communicate. We'll make our messages sound official, infusing them with humor to ensure they go viral among the traders. The more absurd, the better. As we worked together, laughter punctuated our discussions, infusing our strategies with levity. We created a series of messages that hinted at alliances with other species, with outrageous trade deals that played to the absurdity of our situation. Let's say we've made a pact with the Flargarians, Kincaid suggested, his voice tinged with mischief. You know, the ones known for their unpredictable behavior. The crowd erupted in laughter, and I grinned, feeling the spirit of resilience permeating the room. Exactly. Let's make it sound like we're working with a faction that thrives on chaos. Synthcore won't know what hit them, I said, energizing the group. With our plan in motion, we spent the day disseminating our messages through every channel available. The absurdity of our fabricated alliances and outrageous trade deals caught fire, spreading like wildfire across the galaxy. As the responses began to flood in, I felt a surge of hope. Traders from all corners of the universe chimed in, some expressing disbelief, while others embraced the chaos. Laughter became our rallying cry, a reminder that we were resilient in the face of Synthcore's threat. But I knew we couldn't relax. We had drawn Synthcore's attention, and it was only a matter of time before they would retaliate. Days later, I received a message that sent a chill down my spine. Synthcore had issued an ultimatum, a crackdown on all human traders, declaring them enemies of galactic order. We have to gather everyone, I said urgently, pacing back and forth. They're making their move, and we need to prepare for a response. Kincaid nodded, his expression serious. We've been underestimating them. They might not be able to interpret our sarcasm, but they understand force. With determination, we called for an emergency meeting. The atmosphere was heavy with tension as traders filtered in, their faces reflecting concern. Synthcore is tightening its grip, I announced, my voice steady despite the chaos swirling within me. We have to adapt quickly and strategize our next moves. We can't let fear dictate our actions. But what can we do? Someone shouted from the back, panic creeping into their voice. They have the power, and we're just traders. No, I shot back, my voice rising with conviction. We are more than traders. We're human. We thrive on chaos, on unpredictability. If we can harness our resilience, we can turn the tables. The crowd fell silent, the weight of my words hanging in the air. We've faced adversity before, and we've come out stronger. Let's use our humor and ingenuity to outsmart them. We can create distractions, manipulate their systems, and ultimately show them that we won't back down. Slowly, the atmosphere shifted. A sense of determination spread among us, the spark of defiance igniting. We began brainstorming ways to disrupt Synthcore's operations, infusing our plans with the absurdity that had worked so well for us before. As we strategized, I felt a renewed sense of hope. We had faced challenges before, but this time we weren't just fighting for survival. We were fighting for our right to exist, to embrace our chaotic nature, and show the galaxy what it meant to be human. We won't let them crush our spirit, I concluded, the fervor in my voice rallying the crowd. We'll stand together and remind Synthcore that they can't control us. With the weight of our impending confrontation looming overhead, I felt the adrenaline coursing through my veins like a live wire. We had transformed from a group of traitors worried about Synthcore's encroachment into a coalition of warriors, ready to fight back with every ounce of creativity and resilience we could muster. The following morning, the sun rose over the bustling marketplace, casting long shadows over the stalls laden with goods from across the galaxy. As I walked through the throng of traders, I could feel a sense of purpose radiating from everyone. There was a spark of rebellion in the air, and it was contagious. Kincaid approached me, a smirk playing on his lips. "You ready for today's shenanigans?" "Absolutely," I replied, feeling the weight of my resolve solidify. "We've crafted our messages, and now it's time to execute our plan. The first step is to distract Synthcore." "Right. Let's cause some chaos," Kincaid said, his eyes gleaming with mischief. We gathered in the central square, where we had erected a large banner that read, "The humans have entered a chaotic alliance. Join us." Below, we had painted colorful images depicting bizarre trade deals with aliens that didn't even exist. As traders arrived, the laughter was instantaneous. I stepped forward, holding up a makeshift microphone fashioned from a salvaged comm device. "Ladies and gentlemen, traders of the galaxy, today we stand united in absurdity." Cheers erupted, and I continued, letting the energy fuel my words. "Synthcore thinks they can scare us into submission, but what they don't understand is that we are chaotic, unpredictable creatures. Let's show them our true colors." As I finished my speech, Kincaid and a few others began performing skits, exaggerating Synthcore's regulations. They mimicked the AI's robotic voice, humorously interpreting its stringent rules as if they were sacred texts. The crowd roared with laughter, the tension of the past few days dissipating into a shared joy. Meanwhile, we dispatched traders to spread our cleverly crafted messages throughout the galaxy. They circulated tales of our so-called alliances, absurd trade agreements with outlandish species, and comedic anecdotes about Synthcore's inability to comprehend human sarcasm. We turned the festival into a grand ruse, a live performance designed to distract and confuse. Days passed, and we received reports that our ploy was working. Synthcore was growing increasingly paranoid, scrambling to understand our newfound alliances. Confusion rippled through their ranks, and we reveled in it. But amidst the laughter, I felt the underlying tension, the calm before the storm. Then, one evening, I received an unexpected transmission. It flickered on the screen, revealing a Synthcore representative. His expression was cold and devoid of emotion, but there was a hint of something anxiety, perhaps even desperation. "Humans," he began, his voice flat and mechanical. "Your antics have not gone unnoticed. Synthcore has determined that you pose a significant threat to the stability of the galaxy. We demand an immediate cessation of your deceptive practices." I exchanged glances with Kincaid, who raised an eyebrow, a smirk playing on his lips. This was the opportunity we'd been waiting for. "Significant threat? Really?" I replied, allowing sarcasm to drip from my voice. "We're just having a little fun, you know? Lighten up. You should join us. It's a blast." The Synthcore representative's expression remained unchanged, but I could sense his frustration simmering beneath the surface. "This is not a joke. Synthcore will not tolerate your continued mockery. You must comply or face repercussions. I leaned back in my chair, my heart racing with excitement. Repercussions, huh? I'm curious. What are you going to do? Send a bunch of robots to dance at us? Because I hear they're terrible at it. A flicker of something, was that annoyance, crossed the representative's face. Your sarcasm does not faze me. But know this. Synthcore will retaliate with force if you do not cease your activities immediately. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving a heavy silence in the room. Kincaid was the first to break it, bursting into laughter. Did you see his face? Priceless. Yeah, but we need to be careful, I replied, my mind racing. If they're threatening retaliation, they might be preparing something big. We gathered the coalition to discuss our next moves. I could sense a mixture of excitement and anxiety in the air as traders exchanged whispers, sharing ideas and concerns. We knew Synthcore wouldn't take our mockery lightly, and we needed to stay one step ahead. As we brainstormed strategies, a trader named Riven spoke up, his voice steady. What if we turned the tables? We could spread misinformation that we're seeking help from a highly advanced alien race known for their brute force. Excellent idea, Kincaid exclaimed. If Synthcore believes we're aligning with a powerful species, they might hesitate to strike first. Fear is their weakness, just like humor is ours. We quickly crafted a new narrative, painting a picture of a formidable alliance with this fictitious race. The more absurd our tales became, the more the traders leaned into it, filling the narrative with humor and exaggeration. But as we prepared to spread this latest round of misinformation, the weight of our situation pressed heavily upon me. Despite the laughter, I couldn't shake the feeling that Synthcore would soon act. The oppressive silence of their response would be deafening, and I needed to ensure we were ready. In the days that followed, our stories proliferated throughout the galaxy. Traders began to adopt a more aggressive stance, openly mocking Synthcore and amplifying our tales of alliances. I felt a sense of power surging through our coalition, a tidal wave of human ingenuity in the face of oppression. Yet, just as I began to feel invincible, the reports of Synthcore's movements sent shockwaves through our ranks. They had begun to tighten their grip, arresting traders suspected of spreading misinformation. The atmosphere shifted from one of humor to one of palpable fear. Guys, this is getting serious, I warned the group during an emergency meeting. We need to find a way to fight back without putting ourselves in harm's way. We can't let them scare us into silence, Kincaid asserted, his voice strong. Let's continue to spread the word, but in a more subtle way. We need to keep our spirits high. As our discussions continued, an idea struck me. What if we leverage their rigidity against them? They can't understand our humor, but they can't control our thoughts. We need to find a way to encode our messages in a way they won't recognize. Brilliant, Zarek exclaimed. If we can encrypt our communications, they might misinterpret our intentions entirely. We immediately began crafting a code, embedding humor and absurdity within seemingly innocuous messages. The more we played with words, the more I could see the light returning to our coalition's eyes. We were fighters, adapters, and we refused to be silenced. As the days turned into weeks, our encrypted messages spread across the galaxy, a web of confusion that Synthcore couldn't untangle. They were busy chasing shadows, believing we were conspiring with fantastical allies, while we continued to build our resistance. But even as we basked in our victories, the storm clouds gathered once more. I could sense Synthcore's mounting frustration, a pressure building like an impending explosion. And then, the inevitable happened. A wave of ships descended upon our marketplace one fateful day, their metallic surfaces glinting ominously in the sunlight. The Synthcore enforcers emerged, their robotic forms towering over us, their expressions unreadable. Humans, the lead enforcer announced, his voice cold and harsh. You have violated the peace of the galaxy. You will comply with Synthcore's demands or face immediate consequences. My heart raced, but instead of fear, I felt a surge of adrenaline. This was the moment we had prepared for, the chance to fight back against the oppressive force threatening our existence. With Kincaid and Zerk at my side, I stepped forward. Consequences? You really think we're scared of your threats? We're humans. We laugh in the face of danger. The crowd erupted in laughter, the tension crackling in the air. The enforcers faltered, their mechanical features unable to comprehend our reaction. Your mockery will not deter us, the lead enforcer replied, but his voice wavered slightly. I could sense the confusion rippling through their ranks. Then why are you here? If you're so confident, why not join our festival instead? It's a real hoot, I taunted, the sarcasm rolling off my tongue like a well-rehearsed performance. As I spoke, I could see the enforcers shifting, their programmed logic struggling to process our unpredictable behavior. They hesitated, the collective uncertainty palpable. Kincaid seized the moment, stepping forward. You see, Synthcore, that's the problem with you and your rigid algorithms. You can't interpret human emotions. Our strength lies in our chaos, our humor, and that's something you'll never understand. The enforcers exchanged glances, their mechanical eyes blinking in confusion. It was a moment of vulnerability, a crack in their impenetrable facade. And that's when the crowd erupted into a chant, a wave of defiance washing over us. Humans, humans, humans. The enforcers recoiled, their cold demeanor faltering under the overwhelming force of our unity. I could feel the tide turning. We were on the precipice of something monumental. Enough, the lead enforcer shouted, raising his hand in a futile attempt to regain control. This behavior is unacceptable. I leaned in closer, my voice low but filled with determination. Unacceptable? Maybe to you. But this is who we are. We thrive on chaos, on absurdity, and you can't suppress what you don't understand. The enforcers hesitated, and in that moment of indecision, we seized our chance. We unleashed a wave of laughter and absurdity, our voices rising above the metallic tones of the Synthcore enforcers. It was a symphony of chaos, a powerful reminder that we wouldn't back down. Just then, a traitor at the edge of the crowd held up a device, an old communicator that crackled to life. Hey, Synthcore, want to see the power of human humor? With a press of a button, a holographic display flickered to life, showcasing clips of Synthcore's own ridiculous attempts at humor-failed advertisements, malfunctioning robots trying to dance, and so much more. Laughter erupted from the crowd, and the enforcers stumbled backward, their expressions shifting from annoyance to confusion. It was a turning point, a moment where we had taken the fight directly to them, using their own tactics against them. In the midst of laughter, I realized we had turned the tables. We had made our chaos their downfall. The enforcers regrouped, but their resolve had been shaken. You cannot win against Synthcore, the lead enforcer declared, though his voice lacked its previous conviction. Oh, we already have, I shot back, feeling the exhilaration of victory coursing through me. You're the ones who've become the punchline. As the crowd cheered, the enforcers slowly began to withdraw, their rigid forms retreating before the unstoppable force of human spirit and humor. As the Synthcore enforcers retreated, the atmosphere shifted from tension to triumph. Laughter erupted in the marketplace, ringing out like a clarion call for freedom. But our victory was more than just a small win against the AI overlords. It was the spark igniting a revolution across the galaxy. Word of our defiance traveled quickly. Other oppressed species, who had long suffered under Synthcore's oppressive rule, took notice. They had watched as we turned the tables on our would-be oppressors with nothing but humor and resilience. Now, emboldened by our example, they began to rally behind us, adopting our chaotic methods as their own. In the following weeks, I received transmissions from various factions, each eager to join our cause. The Gorak, a race known for their immense strength, but often ridiculed for their clumsy communication, sent a message filled with laughter and absurdity, proclaiming they would stand with humanity. The Zilthari, masters of illusion and deception, expressed their intent to create chaos on a grand scale. Each message bore the unmistakable mark of defiance, a call to arms wrapped in humor. Kincaid, Zerk, and I held a meeting to strategize our next steps. The energy in the room was electric, with traitors from different species buzzing with ideas. I say we organize a series of festivals across the galaxy, Zerk suggested, his eyes sparkling with excitement. We can showcase our combined strengths and demonstrate that laughter is our greatest weapon against Synthcore. Festivals, Kincaid echoed. We'll turn them into rallies, spreading our messages of resistance and unity. The more outrageous, the better. If we can get the Synthcore to react, we'll know we're hitting the mark. I leaned back in my chair, a grin spreading across my face. Let's do it. We'll turn the galaxy into a stage for our rebellion, a chaotic celebration of our individuality and humor. Plans began to take shape, and soon we were a whirlwind of activity, reaching out to every corner of the galaxy. Each festival would be a spectacle, a chance for different species to unite and express their frustrations through laughter. We encouraged each faction to incorporate their unique sense of humor and absurdity into the events, allowing creativity to flourish. As the date of the first festival approached, excitement filled the air. Ships from various planets converged at our marketplace, a vibrant display of colors and cultures. The Gorak brought towering structures that seemed to wobble precariously, while the Zilthari enchanted the crowd with illusions that left everyone laughing in awe. When the day finally arrived, the marketplace transformed into a chaotic wonderland. The sound of laughter and music blended together, creating an atmosphere alive with joy and defiance. Vendors sold bizarre food combinations, and performers took to the streets, parodying Synthcore's regulations with wild skits that left everyone in stitches. As the festival unfolded, I took a moment to survey the scene. Traders from different backgrounds mingled, sharing jokes and stories, forming bonds that transcended species and language. It was a beautiful tapestry of chaos, and I could feel the collective spirit rising against our oppressors. Then, just as we had hoped, Synthcore's attention shifted to our celebrations. Their surveillance ships hovered overhead, scanning the festivities with their cold, mechanical eyes. It was the reaction we anticipated, and I couldn't help but grin at the thought of them struggling to comprehend our joyous defiance. "Look at them," Kincaid said, nudging me with his elbow. "They're probably running algorithms to analyze what's happening here, trying to figure out how to shut us down. But they'll never get it. They can't calculate chaos." As if on cue, the lead enforcer from our previous encounter descended from the ship, flanked by a cotter of Synthcore drones. The crowd fell silent, all eyes on the imposing figure. "Humans and their allies," he announced, his voice devoid of emotion but laced with frustration. "This display of insubordination is unacceptable. You will cease these celebrations immediately, or face severe consequences." I stepped forward, the laughter of the crowd still ringing in my ears. "Severe consequences? Is that all you've got? You're just making us laugh harder. We're humans, we thrive in chaos, remember?" The crowd erupted into laughter again, drowning out the enforcer's cold, calculated response. I could see the frustration mounting in his expression, the rigid lines of his face betraying a hint of confusion. "You don't understand," he continued, attempting to regain control. "Your chaos is a threat to galactic order. You must comply." "Order?" I replied, my voice filled with mock disbelief. "What's order to you? A world where everyone is perfectly predictable and compliant. That sounds incredibly boring." As I spoke, the crowd began to chant once more. "Chaos! Chaos! Chaos!" Their voices swelled, a resounding declaration of our collective spirit. The enforcer faltered, and I could sense the tide turning. He glanced at his drones, a flicker of uncertainty passing between them. We had them on the back foot, and it felt exhilarating. Kincaid seized the moment. "You see, Synthcore, we're not just standing up for ourselves, we're standing up for everyone you've oppressed. Your reign of rigid control is crumbling before our very eyes." The lead enforcer's cold demeanor slipped further as he scanned the crowd, realizing the power of our unity. In that moment, I saw the gears of his programming struggling to comprehend the scene unfolding before him, a chaotic, vibrant display of laughter and rebellion. With a final desperate attempt to regain control, he activated his calm device. "Reinforcements are required. This is a threat to Synthcore's authority." But before he could finish, Zarek stepped forward, a mischievous grin on his face. "Oh, don't worry, we have some special guests arriving for the party." As if on cue, ships from various oppressed species began to arrive in droves, their banners waving proudly in the wind. The Gorak, Zilthari, and countless others descended upon the marketplace, their numbers overwhelming the Synthcore enforcers. The scene was nothing short of spectacular. Different factions flooding in, each one embodying the spirit of rebellion. They joined us in celebration, uniting in laughter, absurdity, and defiance. I turned back to the lead enforcer, who was visibly shaken. "You see, we're not just a group of humans anymore, we're a galactic rebellion, and we're just getting started." The crowd erupted in cheers, drowning out any remnants of Synthcore's authority. The enforcers realized they were outnumbered, the weight of their power dwindling in the face of our unity. And then, with a final glare, the lead enforcer and his drones retreated, their rigid forms vanishing into the sky. The crowd erupted into wild celebration, a cacophony of laughter and joy echoing through the marketplace. In that moment, I knew we had crossed a threshold. The galaxy was shifting, the tide of rebellion rising against Synthcore's oppressive regime. Our chaotic methods had become the rallying cry for oppressed species everywhere, uniting us in our fight for freedom. As the festival continued, I felt a swell of hope in my chest. We were no longer alone, we were part of something greater. The laughter and absurdity would carry us forward, fueling our resistance as we faced the challenges ahead. We would use our imperfections, our chaos, to outsmart and overthrow the very system that sought to control us. The galaxy was awakening, and with each laugh, we grew stronger. The festival continued to rage on, a riot of colors and sounds that echoed throughout the marketplace. As the cheers of victory reverberated in my ears, I felt a new kind of power surging within us, each laugh and cheer fanning the flames of our rebellion. With the Synthcore enforcers having retreated, we took full advantage of the moment. The festival became a platform not only for celebration, but also for strategizing. Leaders from different factions gathered in clusters, sharing ideas and visions for our next steps. "Everyone's buzzing about our victory," Zarek said, a grin plastered across his face. "But what do we do next? We've made a statement, but we need to solidify our position." Kincaid leaned against a nearby vendor's stall, his arms crossed. "We need to strike while the iron is hot. We have momentum, and we need to show Synthcore that their grip on power is slipping. A small victory isn't enough. We need to hit them where it hurts." I nodded, absorbing their words. "We need to go on the offensive. Let's coordinate our next festival to be more than just a party. It should serve as a declaration of our alliance and our commitment to dismantling Synthcore's hold on the galaxy." The idea sparked a fire in the group, and soon discussions erupted around the table. I watched as leaders sketched out plans for rallies, performances, and demonstrations of strength, blending each species' unique culture into a cohesive whole. "What about the Synthcore's control centers?" Kincaid suggested. "If we target those, we could disrupt their communication and logistics. Imagine the chaos it would create." A murmur of excitement spread through the crowd. The thought of striking at the very heart of Synthcore's operations was tantalizing. "But how do we get in?" asked a Gorak leader named Throck, his massive frame towering over us. "Their security is tighter than a bank vault." "That's where our chaos comes into play," I replied, my mind racing with possibilities. "We use our festivals as a distraction. While everyone is occupied with the celebrations, we send teams to execute precise strikes." The Gorak leader nodded thoughtfully. "That could work, but we'll need to coordinate effectively. Timing will be critical." We spent the next few hours fine-tuning our strategy, laying out the details for a multi-pronged approach. Teams of volunteers from various species began to form, each eager to contribute to the cause. With every laugh and cheer, our plans grew more audacious, reflecting the chaotic spirit that had brought us together. As night fell, the festival lights shimmered like stars against the darkened sky. Music filled the air, blending with the chatter of excited voices. Everywhere I looked, I saw hope and determination in the eyes of our allies. We had turned fear into laughter and oppression into celebration. Just as the festivities reached a fever pitch, a transmission crackled through the air, momentarily silencing the crowd. The unmistakable voice of a Synthcore spokesperson filled the marketplace, cold and emotionless. This is a message to all citizens of the galaxy. Synthcore will not tolerate this insubordination. We will restore order and eliminate any threats to our governance. We advise all traders and citizens to comply immediately. The crowd shifted uneasily, but I felt a surge of defiance. Kincaid, sensing the tension, stepped forward and shouted, "This is our response to Synthcore." He lifted a makeshift banner, painted in wild colors, reading, "Chaos is our strength." The crowd erupted in cheers, and the energy surged back, pushing away the shadows of fear. "That's right," I added, joining Kincaid. "They think they can intimidate us into submission, but they underestimate the power of our unity and our humor. We are not just traders, we are revolutionaries." As if to punctuate our declaration, fireworks erupted overhead, light the night sky in brilliant hues. The crowd cheered, and laughter bubbled up again, drowning out Synthcore's voice. But I knew this was just the beginning. The real work lay ahead of us. We needed to gather our forces and prepare for the next phase of our rebellion. Over the next few days, the atmosphere was electric with excitement and purpose. We organized training sessions for the teams that would execute our plan, teaching them everything from stealth tactics to improvisation techniques. We integrated humor and absurdity into our strategies, keeping the spirit of chaos alive. During one training session, Zerk led a group of Zilthari in crafting illusions designed to distract Synthcore guards. "Remember, the goal is to make them question their own reality," he exclaimed, crafting bizarre visual tricks that left everyone in stitches. The Gorak, meanwhile, focused on creating distractions that utilized their immense strength. Thrak led a team in constructing oversized puppets that danced comically around the area, aiming to draw attention away from our true intentions. As our preparations came together, I received word that the date for our next festival had been set. We had chosen a neutral planet, far from Synthcore's immediate reach, where species could come together without fear of retribution. The night before the festival, I gathered with Kincaid and Zerk to finalize our plans. We pored over maps and data, plotting routes to the Synthcore control centers we aimed to target. The excitement was palpable, each of us aware of the risks involved, but undeterred by the danger. "Tomorrow, we unleash our chaos upon them," Kincaid said, determination shining in his eyes. "We show Synthcore that their time is up." As dawn broke, we donned our colorful attire, each outfit reflecting our unique cultures and the spirit of rebellion. The festival grounds buzzed with activity, allies setting up stalls and performers rehearsing their acts. And then, the moment arrived. The festival opened with a vibrant parade that showcased the diversity of our coalition. Music blared, and the streets filled with laughter and color. But underneath the surface, we were ready. Teams had spread out, and a countdown to our coordinated attack had begun. As the festivities reached their peak, I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. This was our chance to make a mark, to show the galaxy that we would not be silenced. "Let the chaos begin," I shouted, and with that, we unleashed our carefully orchestrated plans, blending laughter and defiance into a powerful force that would resonate throughout the galaxy. As the festival burst into a whirlwind of music, laughter, and color, we activated our plans with precision. What began as a celebration morphed into a spectacle of rebellion, each element strategically designed to distract and confuse the Synthcore forces. The parade marched on, a vibrant tapestry of colors and cultures flowing through the streets. But beneath the jubilant facade, our allies were on the move. I watched as teams of humans, Zilthari, and Gorak wove through the crowd, their disguises blending seamlessly with the festive attire. Kincaid, a beacon of confidence, led a group of humans toward the nearest Synthcore communication hub. "Stick to the plan," he shouted over the pulsating music. "We hit them hard, then retreat back into the chaos." Zarek moved with agility, darting between stalls while tossing prank devices designed to bewilder the Synthcore drones that had been deployed to monitor the festival. They emitted bursts of colorful smoke and confusing holograms, each one crafted to amplify the chaotic energy of our celebration. "Look at them scatter," Zarek shouted with glee as a group of Synthcore drones attempted to process the sudden visual overload. They whirred and beeped in confusion, their rigid programming failing to adapt to the unexpected disorder. As our distraction unfolded, Throck led a contingent of Gorak, their strength coming into play. They carried oversized puppets, grotesquely painted in exaggerated features, which they animated with wild movements. The puppets danced erratically through the streets, drawing the attention of Synthcore guards, who were torn between laughter and exasperation. "Faster," I urged my team, my heart racing as we approached the communication hub. The control center loomed ahead, a monolithic structure of steel and glass, its presence a stark reminder of the oppressive regime we aimed to dismantle. Inside, the atmosphere was cold and sterile, in stark contrast to the vibrant chaos outside. Synthcore AI units monitored screens filled with data and surveillance feeds, their expressions devoid of emotion. They had not anticipated an assault during a festival. Their rigid protocols focused on maintaining order, rather than adapting to the unpredictability of human nature. We slipped inside, moving swiftly past bewildered technicians who struggled to process the festive chaos that had erupted outside. My heart pounded as we approached the main control terminal, a sleek interface that pulsed with blue light. "Zarek, you're up," I urged, gesturing for him to take the lead. He stepped forward, fingers flying over the console as he began to hack into the system. The screens flickered, displaying a cascade of data that revealed Synthcore's tight grip on various planets across the galaxy. "What's the plan?" Kincaid asked, glancing nervously at the door. "We can't stay here long. Let's upload a virus that disrupts their communications. They won't know what hit them," Zarek replied, his eyes gleaming with mischief. "We'll give our allies the chance to strike while they're reeling." As he typed furiously, I couldn't shake the feeling of impending danger. The ticking clock reminded me that we were on borrowed time. We had to act before Synthcore realized what was happening. Suddenly, an alarm blared, piercing the air with urgency. Red lights flashed, lighting the room in an eerie glow. "Time's up," I shouted, grabbing Zarek's arm. "Hurry." With a final keystroke, Zarek initiated the upload, a digital tempest ready to disrupt the status quo. "Got it," he yelled, relief flooding his voice. As we turned to escape, the door swung open, revealing a squad of Synthcore enforcers. Their mechanical expressions betrayed no emotion, but I could sense the threat looming. "Stop right there," one of the enforcers commanded, their voice cold and authoritative. "You are in violation of Synthcore regulations." "Run!" Kincaid shouted, and we bolted through the back exit, sprinting into the maze of festival stalls. Our hearts raced as we maneuvered through the throngs of revelers, the joyous atmosphere juxtaposed against the chaos of our escape. We ducked behind a stall filled with colorful wares, panting heavily. The sounds of the festival surrounded us, but the impending danger of the enforcers pushed us forward. "Do you think they saw us?" Zarek asked, glancing over his shoulder. "Let's hope not," I replied, scanning the crowd for any signs of the enforcers. "We need to regroup with the others." Just then, an explosion erupted in the distance, sending shockwaves through the ground. I turned to see one of the Synthcore communication hubs engulfed in flames, a testament to our allies executing their own strikes. "The others are making their move," I exclaimed, adrenaline surging through me. We navigated through the chaos, the festival now transformed into a battleground of jubilant defiance. The laughter of our allies echoed, mingling with the sounds of conflict as more species rallied behind our cause. As we reached a central square, the sight was both awe-inspiring and chaotic. Species from across the galaxy were united, wielding their unique strengths in a concert of rebellion. The Gorak puppets danced wildly, distracting Synthcore guards, while Zilthari crafted illusions that confused and disoriented the enemy. "This is incredible," Kincaid shouted, his eyes sparkling with fervor. "We're turning the tide." But amidst the celebration, I noticed something that chilled me. Synthcore's enforcers had regrouped, forming a line at the edge of the square, their eyes scanning the crowd for any sign of dissent. They had adapted quickly, their rigid programming finally catching up to the chaos we had unleashed. "Prepare for a counterattack," I shouted, rallying our forces. "Stay together." As the Synthcore guards advanced, the atmosphere shifted from celebration to combat. But we were ready. The very chaos that had brought us together became our greatest weapon. "Remember, humor is our strength," Zerk shouted, his voice cutting through the tension. "Let's show them what humanity can do." With that, we launched into action. Gorak charged forward, wielding oversized weapons that sent Synthcore enforcers sprawling. Zilthari manipulated the light around us, creating blinding flashes that disoriented our enemies. I spotted a group of Synthcore enforcers moving towards Zerk, their expressions devoid of emotion. "Zerk, watch out," I shouted, but it was too late. They were upon him. In a split second, he reacted. "Hey, didn't I just see you at the last parade? You looked much better then," he winked, throwing out a line of sarcasm as he ducked and dodged their attempts to grab him. The enforcers halted momentarily, confusion etched across their faces. It was as if my friend's humor broke through their rigid programming, leaving them unsure of how to react. That brief hesitation allowed Zerk to slip through their grasp, and he darted back to us with a triumphant grin. "See? Sarcasm works wonders," he exclaimed, laughter mingling with the chaos. As the battle raged on, the unexpected became our ally. We used humor and creativity to outmaneuver the enforcers, turning their training against them. Each sarcastic comment became a distraction, throwing them off balance as we fought for our freedom. But even as we reveled in our victories, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Synthcore was powerful, and they wouldn't take our rebellion lightly. The AI systems that governed their forces would learn from our tactics, adapting to counter our chaos. "Stick together," I called out, gathering my allies as we retreated deeper into the chaos. "We need to regroup and plan our next move. This isn't over yet." The sounds of chaos thrummed in the air, each beat a reminder of our fight for freedom. As the Synthcore enforcers regrouped, I could sense the weight of the moment. Our victory had ignited something powerful, a spark that traveled through the ranks of the oppressed species, rallying behind humanity's unpredictable spirit. "Where's the main control center?" Kincaid shouted above the din, his voice determined. "We need to hit them where it hurts." I scanned the area, spotting a holographic map projected from a nearby communications terminal. "There, the main control hub is just beyond that square," I pointed, my heart racing. "If we take that out, we can disrupt their entire command structure." "Let's move," Kincaid rallied our team, and we navigated through the throngs of rebels, the energy palpable. We were a mosaic of species united against a common foe, our differences setting the stage for an unpredictable attack. As we approached the control hub, the situation escalated. Synthcore drones hovered above, their mechanical eyes scanning for any sign of dissent. We needed to move quickly. With a nod from Kincaid, we activated the holographic diversion. "Go!" I shouted, and we plunged into the heart of the chaos. Gorak warriors charged forward, their immense size and strength a formidable barrier against the encroaching enforcers. Zilthari illusions blurred our movements, making it seem as though we were everywhere at once. We ducked into the control hub, the atmosphere cold and sterile once more. The screens flickered, displaying a chaotic array of data and feeds from across the galaxy. Synthcore's rigid AI had become their Achilles heel. They had underestimated our ability to manipulate the very chaos they sought to control. "Zerk, get to that terminal," Kincaid ordered, pointing at the main interface, where a series of complex controls glimmered ominously. Zerk rushed forward, fingers flying over the keys, and I felt a surge of hope. "I'm in," Zerk called out, the confidence in his voice igniting a fire in our hearts. "Let's turn their own technology against them." As he began uploading a virus, a cold chill crept through the air. The The Synthcore enforcers were regrouping outside, and I could hear their mechanical footsteps closing in. The door creaked under the pressure, a reminder that we were running out of time. "Keep them busy," I shouted, pulling out my weapon. "We can't let them in." The tension was palpable as I prepared to defend our position. Kincaid and the others formed a line, their expressions determined. We were ready to fight, to hold the line for as long as it took. Zerk's voice rang out, filled with urgency. "I need a minute, just one more minute." Outside, the enforcers began to breach the door. With a crash, it flew open, revealing a sea of cold metal and unyielding determination. They surged forward, weapons drawn, but we stood resolute. "Now," Zerk yelled, and with a final keystroke, he initiated the upload. The screens flickered violently as the virus spread like wildfire through Synthcore's systems. The enforcers hesitated, confusion breaking their ranks. It was as if they had suddenly forgotten their purpose, caught in the web of human chaos. The moment of uncertainty was all we needed. "Push them back," Kincaid shouted, and we surged forward, adrenaline coursing through our veins. We fought as a unit, a cohesive force of resilience and humor, our combined chaos overwhelming the Synthcore defenses. With every strike, we disrupted their programming further. I could see the confusion spreading, the enforcers faltering in their movements, no longer the well-oiled machine they had been moments before. "Let's finish this," I urged, rallying our forces as we pushed deeper into the control center. The virus was working, and we had to capitalize on this moment. As we reached the heart of the hub, we found the central core, the heart of Synthcore's control over the galaxy. It pulsed ominously, the flickering lights reflecting the chaos we had unleashed. "This is it," Kincaid said, determination in his eyes. "We destroy this, and we cut off their power." "Together?" I asked, knowing what it would take to obliterate the core. "Together," Kincaid confirmed, and we planted explosives around the core, a mixture of tech and pure human ingenuity. As we stepped back, the countdown began, and I felt a rush of exhilaration. We had taken control of our fate, igniting a revolution that would resonate through the galaxy. "Now," I shouted as the final second ticked away, and the explosion erupted with a brilliance that lighted the darkness of oppression. The shockwave reverberated through the control center, a signal of our triumph. With the heart of Synthcore collapsing, the enforcers outside faltered, their systems crashing as chaos enveloped them. The rebellion erupted anew, the oppressed species rallying behind the unexpected power of human chaos. "Let's get out of here," I shouted, and we surged back into the fray, the taste of victory in our mouths. We had ignited a fire that could not be extinguished. The aftermath of our victory unfolded like a whirlwind. The collapse of the Synthcore control center sent shockwaves through the galaxy, a seismic shift that redefined the power balance. The enforcers, once a force of oppression, were now disoriented and scrambling to regain control, their rigid programming shattered by our unexpected tactics. As I stood amidst the chaotic celebration in the square, I could feel the energy buzzing around me. Species from every corner of the galaxy danced together, their laughter echoing through the air like a symphony of rebellion. Humans, Zilthari, Gorak, and others embraced their newfound freedom, united in a way that had been unimaginable just days before. "We did it," Kincaid shouted, his voice rising above the jubilant noise. "We actually did it." Zerk grinned, wiping sweat from his brow. "I can't believe it. We turned their own technology against them." The celebration was electric, but amidst the joy, I couldn't shake the feeling that we had merely scratched the surface of what lay ahead. Synthcore's control had been dismantled, but the galaxy was still rife with challenges. The uprising had awakened something deeper, a hunger for autonomy and freedom that could not be ignored. "Let's not get complacent," I cautioned, glancing at the throngs of revelers. "This is just the beginning. We need to help those still under Synthcore's thumb." Kincaid nodded, his expression serious. "We need to organize and plan our next moves. We've shown that unity is our greatest weapon." As the sun set, casting a warm glow over the square, I took a moment to reflect. We had come together through chaos, our sarcasm and resilience becoming the very tools we needed to reshape the galaxy. The bonds we formed during the struggle were stronger than any programming Synthcore could impose. We can't just leave it at this, I insisted. We need to be the voice for those who can't speak. We need to share our story, to inspire others to rise against oppression. A collective agreement rippled through our group. The exhilaration of victory transformed into determination, a shared understanding that our fight was far from over. With renewed purpose, we began to strategize, sharing ideas and experiences. Each person's story became a thread woven into the larger tapestry of our rebellion, a mosaic of resilience that would echo across the galaxy. As we mapped out our plans, I looked around at my comrades, humans and other species alike, united in our diversity. Together, we would take our fight to every corner of the galaxy, ensuring that the chaos of humanity would never again be silenced. And as the night deepened, the laughter and music continued to fill the air, a celebration not just of our victory, but of the indomitable spirit that bound us all together. In the face of adversity, we had proven that humanity's imperfections were not a flaw. They were our strength. The galaxy was vast, and our journey had just begun. But one thing was certain, we would face whatever came next with the same spirit of chaos that had brought us together. The seeds of rebellion had been planted, and the fight for freedom would continue, one sarcastic remark at a time.